Welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So Hellbound is a South Korean series that is based upon a webtoon, and it's a combination of a fantasy, drama, thriller, all rolled into one. And if you've seen the trailer, you would automatically think, just like I did, that this is going to be a pure fantasy series. But whenever you watch this, it's really a lot more than that, and in many unexpected ways. And so the general story is we have this police officer, detective, his name is Yeon, and also this lawyer, Mi-hyun, and they basically are involved with this cult leader. His name is Jin-jun-sun, and he has some insights into some mysterious things that's going on. And the mysterious things that's going on is these really weird-looking dark creatures. They kind of look like Abomination from The Incredible Hulk. They suddenly appear, and then they basically kill a person who was decreed or said to be dead on a certain day and time. And so they are considered, I guess, angels. And then the angel tells this person when their last day on earth is going to be. And then these creatures come and violently kill them. And I know that sounds really weird, but that's like the general story. And from this, we actually get into the much bigger story, which is really this whole cult, this religious cult that Jin-jun-sun is heading, but also how that affects everyone else. And of course, we have these angels or creatures at the same time. So that's kind of like a general story of what this is about. Now, getting into the things that I did really enjoy about this series is the story itself. As I said a little bit earlier, I kind of thought, just looking at the trailers, this is definitely going to be a fantasy series because it's mostly, from what I could tell from the trailer, was about these creatures. You know, they're all CG animated, so I was completely thinking this is going to be fantasy for sure. But when you watch it, it's really not about that. You know, even though it does play a role, that's really not what this entire story is about. And if anything, it's more about what happens to people whenever this unexpected event causes other people to basically not trust other people. You know, human nature, society, being controlled by groups and organizations. That's really what it's about. And as each episode went, it gets deeper and deeper into that. And the thing is, the creatures or the angel, the prophecy and decree, it's really more to tell that story, basically tell the entire bigger story about what happens to people whenever something like this occurs. And so that's kind of like the long-winded way of saying it, but I found the story very, very interesting. It was different and definitely unexpected. And another thing I did enjoy about this series, once again, very unexpected, is the sheer amount of violence and blood in this. Whenever you see the trailer, you were thinking, okay, fantasy, CG characters, okay, we kind of get that. But you would not expect the level of violence and bloodiness in this. And now that I actually think about it, seeing who actually directed this, who is the director of Train to Busan and Peninsula, a really awesome series, especially Train to Busan. That was one of my favorite zombie movies. Very bloody, very violent. Well, I can kind of see where that violence come from. And because it's so brutal and bloody, it really takes a different tone. You know, when you watch it, you would think it's going to be fantasy type action, but it's not. You know, the creatures here, even though they are CG generated, what they do to people, it's very real. And it kind of brings the whole level of tension and goriness to another level. You know, it's really sometimes uncomfortable to watch or even think about it. And that's something that really does something that I normally do not see in something that I would consider a fantasy series at first. But then I realized it's not that. So that's another way in which this series is really quite different. And I did appreciate the fact that they didn't stray away from the violence. And even for characters that you think, you know, might make it or might be saved, well, most of the times they're not. And so that's kind of like, I would say, some of the surprises in this series. It takes a very brutal, bloody, and realistic approach to what would happen to people. And then another aspect of this series that I really appreciated is the overall mystery of it. Even though you see the creatures, you see this angel, the prophecy, the decrees and stuff, you really don't know where they came from. You don't know what's going on. And throughout the show, you're always in this whole limbo of like, you know something, but really you don't. And I think this was done on purpose, as you see when you watch the entire season. And it looks like the second seasons is where we're going to get hopefully more of this information. And so if you kind of like the whole mystery aspect of a story and a series, well, this has it, and it sets it up really well. And at the same time, it kind of keeps you wanting to watch the very next episode because you really want to know what's going on. You know, why are these things happening? How is this involved with these characters? And there's so many other questions that you hope that it's going to be answered with each new episode. And even though some of these things are answered, most things are not. And so the final thing that this series does really well is this whole world building. And so now we have established this world where these angels, I don't even know if that's really the case, and demons exist, and yet people are still going on about their daily lives in a really different type of way. And at the same time, you know that this world, there's another element to it. So we still haven't seen the creatures, demons, and angels side of the world. And hopefully in season 2, we will see that. And so that's something that I'm really anticipating to see in the whole Hellbound universe. For the best value in domain names, check out Namecheap, where you can get a domain for an entire year for less than $10, plus get WhoisGuard privacy protection for free. For more information, check out the affiliate link in the description area below. Now, getting to the things that I didn't like as much about the series is this is a 6-episode series. And the thing is, the first 3 episodes feel really different from the last 3 episodes. Even though there's definitely one continuous story, it also feels like 2 different stories with different characters, if that makes sense. So whenever you're watching it, you're built up to follow these certain characters and the story and narrative. And then once you get past episode 3, that doesn't seem like the case anymore. Even though some of the characters are still there throughout the entire series, it seems like a disconnect, you know, in a lot of ways. And so that kind of threw me off. But that doesn't really affect the overall story as a whole. It just really made it feel like sudden, let's just say that. And it kind of took me out of what was being built out in the first 3 episodes. And then the second thing that I didn't enjoy as much is, even though I absolutely love the mystery and the world building, I would have really appreciated some more information on these creatures, on these demons and these angels and so forth. And once again, I really think they're saving that for season 2. And once you watch the entire season, you see that that's probably the case. But it would have been nice to know a little bit more about that. So I would say this is more, I'd say, a nitpick. Because by the end of the season 1, you see that there's more to it. But at the same time, it would have been really cool to learn a lot more about these things. And so hopefully season 2 is going to explain that. So that is my review on Hellbound. I think this is a really good series, and it's one that takes a different approach to what you would expect. And at the same time, it really presents you with a world that is brutal, violent, but at the same time also has this whole fantasy element as well. So if you actually had any thoughts on this, be sure to leave that in the commentary below. And if you did want to see more of my Korean film and show reviews, I do have an entire playlist. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And if you're a creative geek like me, and you want to get exclusive access to more content that I don't put out here publicly on my YouTube channel, then join my Gold Content Creators group, where you're going to get content like this and more for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Gold Content Creators group.